Yes, it is the DPB show here at the DPB show, I should say. I have to get the branding correct, right? I'm David Paul Blumenshine. Tuesday afternoon, 4 to 5 o'clock. I will be going live on Rumble, uh, Twitter slash now known as X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can find me there. I so appreciate you joining in. I hope that you go out and like and subscribe, smash the like button, hit on that thing, share it with your friends, because it's important, right? Uh, I'm not, doing this new format and getting to the content. I want to make sure that I don't bury the lead because this is exciting stuff, and I think it's things that you're not going to hear on other news networks, what I call the propaganda media. They're not going to report on stuff like this because it doesn't shed a great light on who they are and what they do. Um, but I always lead my show on Sunday by saying I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody. I don't claim to be any of the headliners, Bongino, Levin, Hannity, Shapiro, Beck. The list goes on and on. Crowder, Rogan. I mean, these guys are at the pinnacle of talk radio and also podcasting. I'm just DPB. And I'm hoping as we walk this thing out through the next couple months that uh, that you start to really get an appreciation of taking the complex and making it simple. That's something that I find doesn't happen enough in talk radio. I was listening to Bongino earlier today, and the complexity of what he's talking about. He was covering a plethora of different topics, but specifically, I should say, he was covering Obama's new movie that was out and all the intricacies behind that. And, I think can get lost sometimes in what exactly is happening in the world around us. But I want to take this show, at the DPB show, the DPB show or at the DPB show, and I want to make it more um, specific to the locale that we are in, the state of Illinois. I know that somebody encouraged me here last week to make this to be something that is a source of knowledge and news for Illinois and the local counties around Illinois. There's 102 counties specifically in Illinois. I think I'm stuck on the word specifically already. I'm going to shake that out of my head. Get the eraser board out. There you go. I think I've got that out of my head. But I want to hit upon those things that we won't necessarily see covered. And one of those topics, which I believe will not get any traction in most of the mainstream media, and then, of course, the local media, is this study that was just released. It states that study finds that teens of conservative families are more likely to be mentally healthy. A new study reveals that what would it be no big hum for conservatives, but might be revelatory for others. That teens with conservative parents are more likely to be more healthy mentally. This comes from the Institute of Family Studies and Gallup. So just not any uh, fly-by-night news source is putting together this research. This is actually Gallup and the Institute of Family Studies. And the report, authored by Jonathan Rothwell, found my colleagues and I at Gallup launched a study this summer to understand the causes. We surveyed 6,643 parents, including 2,956 who live with an adolescent, which is unique in of itself. And we surveyed an additional 1,580 of those adolescents. So adolescents themselves were studied in this particular research. We asked about mental health, visits to doctors, parenting practices, family relationships, activities, personality traits, attitudes toward marriage, and other topics, including excessive social media use. Wow, we hit upon that at the DPB show when we talked about all of the particular uh, news outlets and sources and technology that young people have at their fingertips. What used to be something that required that they go and find a physical paper, or they flip on a radio or a TV station at a particular time to get the reports, whether that be anything from entertainment to news to sports. You had to go and utilize your network of people, right? I know that I heard this on the Bongino show, that if you wanted to know the score of the Yankees Red Sox games back in the day when Dan Bongino lived in New York City, you just didn't find that out by taking in the palm of your hand your powerful little handheld computer and flipping up a search engine and saying who won the game between Boston and New York. No, you've got to do a little research. This goes on besides the social media use, as discussed in prior work. I present the results in a new Institute of Family Studies and Gallup research brief. The findings are clear. The most important factor in the mental health of adolescent children is the quality of the relationship with their caregivers. This, in turn, is strongly related to parenting practices, with the best results coming from warm, responsive, and rule-bound disciplined parenting. I have also covered with a good friend of mine who happens to have authored and done a full-length movie called The Father Effect. Uh, he's a great resource, a friend of mine, and I've had him on my show. He's fascinating because his name's John Finch. He's out of Texas. I'm hoping to get John to do one of the DPB at the DPB Show lives with me, because we have a new format. I used to bring John on at least once or twice a year over the 3 years that I was live on Sunday afternoons. But John covers a lot of this. He talks about the father effect. He himself was somebody who understands this full-heartedly, because when he was in 8th grade, his father dropped him off at school and unfortunately drove down the road, unbeknownst to John. John said it was rare that his father would take him to school in the first place, alone let kiss him goodbye as he got out of the car. Well, his father had a shotgun in the back of their station wagon, drove down the away from the school down a somewhat of a desolate road, and put the shotgun to his head. And he forever talks about that and the impact that had on him as an adolescent. That's the 8th grade. That's the age group. But the findings are clear in this research that was done. Um, the most important factor of the mental health of an adolescent child is the quality and relationship of its caregivers. This is in turn strongly related to parenting practices, with the best results, as I was saying, coming from warm, responsive, and rule-bound disciplined parenting. The data also reveal the characteristics of parents who engage in best practices and enjoy the highest quality relationships. Further, the report specified conservative and very conservative parents are the most likely to adopt the parenting practices associated with adolescent mental health. And parents who think highly of marriage. And listen to this. This is stuff that most of us know, and I'm hopeful that this this report, this show, will reach the unreached, because I think that's important, because we kind of take this for granted. The parents who think highly of marriage exhibit better parenting practices and have a higher quality relationship with their teens. The report explained that after a decade of surging adolescent mental health problems, we know that to be the fact, right? And suicide, teen suicide, it's in the news. The nation's leading public health authorities have declared an emergency. Unfortunately, the solutions proposed by organizations like the CDC, Center of Disease Control, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, such as increased funding for diagnostic and psychiatric services. I don't know about you, and I want to interject this right now, is that here locally, where I live, in central Illinois, specifically, and there I go again, specifically, it's in the word that's on my head today. It must mean that I need to be laser focused, because this is a topic I know that's going to get a lot of people uh, pushing back against it. They might not necessarily agree with it, but we here in McLean County when it comes to psychiatric care for adolescents, it's almost non-existent. There are very few resources for teens, not only in McLean County, but Tazewell County and all of the surrounding counties, Livingston, Ford, DeWitt, Logan, Sangamon, Champaign, Piatt. I mean, you take the amount of health professionals that deal with the adolescent psychiatry. It's few and far between. And the other thing we find out is it takes months to get in. When a young person is in crisis, it takes more than a couple months, or it's immediate. This is what this points out. Obviously the diagnostic and psychiatric services do not meet the challenge and ignore what are likely to be the most important causes. Adolescent biology hasn't changed. Isn't that? Let me say that again. Adolescent biology hasn't changed. No matter how much the political conversation and the rhetoric that's out there, especially, see, I almost said it. I almost went for the S word, especially in our public school system. They would like to rewrite what biology is, but adolescent biology hasn't changed. It's documented there's no variation in different economic situations either. So whether you're rich, poor, middle class, there is no difference in this behavior that we're seeing. The results may be shocking to many highly educated Americans. And if you're just joining us here at the DPB show, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. You can listen and hear us now on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And then those two live shows will make up our weekend show from 1 to 3 on Sundays at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So you can still tune in on Sundays and hear the radio version of the live version that's happening right now on social media. So once again, I thank you for tuning in. I will get to the chat. I see that we have some people in the chat room and they've already commented. So they, it's fascinating. Once again, the chat room is always full of life, people with a lot of opinions. However, I'm holding it, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, in my formerly nicotine-stained hands. Research. See, what I find out about most people is they don't really want solutions. They want to talk about the differences and they want to create. But this is research that's done. I'm a conservative parent. I look at my two daughters. I can unequivocally verify. There's a book out there too, another one that I really enjoyed, not only John Finch's The Father Effect, but Meg Meeker wrote a book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And it is spot on. I recommend it to everyone. Why? Because you're either going to marry somebody's daughter or you're going to have daughters. And I speak, of this when it comes to most people who come together in marriage and have children, whether they have them through a birth or whether they adopt them. The impact of your children in adolescence on how we raise our children is now in black and white. The statistics are in. The results may be shocking to many highly educated Americans, maybe the gentleman that's in our chat room right now, who were taught to believe that socioeconomic status dictates everything good in life. Income doesn't buy better parenting, and more highly educated parents do not score better either. Parenting style and relationship quality also do not meaningfully vary by race and ethnicity within our U.S. sample. It noted pointedly that there are some parental characteristics that do have an impact. Political ideology is one of the strongest predictors. Conservative and very conservative parents are the most likely to adopt the parenting practices associated with adolescent mental health. They are the most likely to effectively discipline their children while also displaying affection and responding to their needs. Liberal parents score the lowest, even worse than very liberal parents, largely because they are the least likely to successfully discipline their children. By contrast, conservative parents enjoy higher quality relationships with their children, characterized by fewer arguments, more warmth, and a stronger bond. And that comes from not just the parent's perspective, the report said, but also from the child themselves. Like the research said at the beginning, the adolescents themselves were interviewed. Aside from political ideology, parents who think highly of marriage by disagreeing that it is an outdated institution and agreeing that it improves the quality of relationships um, by strengthening commitment, exhibit better parenting practices, and have a higher quality relationship with their teens. Parents who wish for their own children to get married someday also tend to be more effective parents. Those who embrace a pro marriage view on all three have the best outcomes. That's what's in this report. Gallup, obviously, as I said, that's just not a fly by night research firm. And talk about blasting the new age lifestyle out of the water. The report said other relationships seem to affect the current child parent relationship. Parents who give high ratings to their relationship with their spouse or romantic partner are also more likely to adopt best practice parenting strategies and enjoy higher quality relationships with their teens. And there's a difference between authoritative homes and authoritarian. Children raised in an authoritative homes are more likely to exhibit self-control, social competence, success in school, compliance with rules and reasonable social norms, and even exhibit more confidence and creativity. Hundreds of subsequent empirical studies show that depression, anxiety, and behavioral problems are significantly lower when children experience this form of authoritative parenting. You can find this report and news out there. It is at WND, WND News Center. There's the report under likely mentally health conservative parents study says keywords Gallup, as I said earlier, and the Family Institute of Family Studies at and Gallup both did the research together. They collaborated on that. 6,643 parents, including 2,956 who live with an adolescent, and the adolescents weren't left out. 1,580 of those adolescents were also interviewed. So I'm going to continue the topic in discussing this. I think it's pertinent that we address this issue because where did it go? It kind of lost a lot of the limelight and exposure. I mean, human trafficking became something big. The Sound of Freedom movie that was out there uh, shed light on that. It's obviously still going on at the southern border. I mean, the border, it's fascinating to me that we as a civilized society with a constitution to protect and defend the borders of our country can't even shut off the flow of people groups coming from every country without vetting any of them, which is also exacerbating this mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis. We have had a mental health crisis, especially amongst our adolescents, but also amongst our military. It has been reported, and I hope to be able to cover that in of itself because there's another study out that's kind of indicating what is the cause specifically. I love the word today. It's the theme of the Today Show of what is causing a lot of the suicide amongst our military members. So, with that, I want to jump into another topic. I know that we're going to go for a quick break here in about 2 minutes, but this is also interesting as it dovetails in with this research. And this just came out. I think it was about it was last week, towards the end of last week. There was an article written uh, that dealt with James Carville. I don't know how many of you are familiar with James Carville. He is a talking head for the Democrat Party, but he's married to a Republican, which I'd love to be in that household. I don't know. I'm assuming they're still together. I just make that assumption that they are. But Madeline is her name. But the longtime Democrat strategist, James Carville, made headlines over the weekend. He was on Maurer's show when he accused Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, of being a Christian nationalist who poses a bigger threat than Al Qaeda. But our Carville's culmination served a deeper purpose. They point out a profound spiritual void that causes liberal politicos to dehumanize faithful Christians for believing in eternal pre-political morals. Now you're going to see how I kind of bring these two together. Obviously, teens from conservative families are more likely to be mentally healthy. A lot of conservatives, and not to say all, I mean, we have conservatives that are Jewish, Hindus, Vivek Ramaswamy being one of them. We have people from Islam uh, that are of the Muslim faith that are conservative. Uh, However, when we talk about Christianity, that's what this article is dealing with. Mike Johnson and what he believes is one of the greatest threats we have today to the United States. This is James Carville saying this on a national show, similar to going back to Lisa Stevanovic, who was questioning the three professors, presidents of the universities at their respective universities, University of Penn, MIT, and Harvard, asking unequivocally, yes or no, does the code of conduct on your campus allow for the call for genocide? And not one of those three presidents of those respectful universities was able to give a unequivocal answer of it absolutely should be banned from our campus, that anyone calling for genocide should be immediately expelled. And of course, we know the rest of the story as we go forward. Two of those university presidents have resigned. Now, let's be clear, they didn't leave the campus. They still are tenured professors going about their business. They will be replaced by someone else. But one in particular isn't leaving. Um, I heard it referred to as what happens if somebody, and if you're just joining us here at the DPB show, we will be live on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on Sunday we will have a recorded show in our formerly live show time slot on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So we will take both the Tuesday and Thursday show, put them together, sew them together. Kat does a great job at doing that, and then we will be broadcasting. So once again, I appreciate you guys joining me here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 5, the drive time. Please go out, like, subscribe, and follow. The big thing is I'm finding in the world of podcasting and being live on the social media platforms is I need you to follow. I so appreciate it when you do. Like I've said often, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody. And I think it's important that we take the complex issues and we take them and simplify them because they do. We get into the weeds and it's hard to sometimes try to siphon through all the chaff, right? As we're trying to figure out where the kernels of corn are. And I think it's important. But anyhow, Mike Johnson and what he believes, Mike Johnson being the Speaker of the House, who replaced Kevin McCarthy after Matt Gaetz moved to have him removed as the Speaker. Mike Johnson is now the new Speaker of the House in the United States Congress, the House of Representatives, I should say. Mike Johnson and what he believes is one of the greatest threats we have today to the United States. I promise you, this is James Carville, a Politico, Democrat strategist. I promise you, I know these people, Carville raged on the overtime segment of Bill Maher's HBO show, which confusingly airs on CNN. You're talking about Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism. Uh, said Maurer. This is bigger threat than Al Qaeda, which this is one of these other people who I believe will not give a definitive answer to the question, is genocide obviously a bad thing? This is bigger than a threat than Al Qaeda to this country. To hear the former Clinton strategist tell it, America stands one election away from becoming the United States of Gilead. Christian nationalists, he averred, controlled the Speaker of the House. They got probably at least 2 Supreme Court justices, maybe more. Don't kid yourself. Democrats worrying over Christian congregants, while their left-wing base recently made the words of Osama bin Laden go viral, seems misplaced. Physician, heal thyself, yet Carville continued. This is a fundamental threat to the United States, he insisted, because Christian nationalists don't believe in the Constitution. I guess I got to stop right there. Christian nationalists don't believe in the Constitution. You know, it's funny how they have identity for everyone. No one's just a human being, an American, someone who wakes up every morning, does their rituals that they have to take care of their families. We don't hear anything about that, but they love to identify everyone, whether it's mega extremists, MAGA this, MAGA that. Joe Biden himself even came out and said that. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, has come out and slammed mega extremists and right-wing extremists. You know, these folks, these are the people, when they talk about radicalism and being radical. What do you think it is to open the borders to millions of people as you have homeless people residing in your own communities, specifically veterans who are living on the streets and suffering from mental illness? Is that not radical? Is it not radical not to be able to at least agree that killing humans in the womb at 9 months of age is a radical practice? One of what I would consider human sacrifice? You know, I find it interesting. Nationalism, Christian nationalism. No. When those founders walked into that room, in Independence Hall, and they were carrying their Bibles in one hand, and they were going in there to work out the Constitution as it stands today. See, what most of our friends on the other side of the aisle, very confused friends, because they become more and more confused about the Constitution day in, day out. I hear them repeat things that are so far from the truth. And I, of course, love to have my pocket Constitution in my pocket because it's a very simple document. It's not that complex. But what we try to make our Constitution, as Benjamin Franklin said, we've given you a republic, a constitutional republic, if you can keep it. People that are out there that are constantly denying that the Constitution is a living document. No, it's not. It's survived 257 years or whatever it is, if my math serves me. It is a document like no other in the world. No other country has a document like the Constitution of the United States. And that's what they're attacking. That's what they want to do. They're convinced that that's where, and that's what James Carville's doing here, right? He now is displacing. It's not China. It's not the communist Chinese coming through the southern border that have the ability to disrupt so many things in economy. We're hearing reports on many levels of cybersecurity, cognitive security. Cognitive security meaning that they're having the ability through many different formats to program young people, as I was saying, teens. They're able to program their minds. We know how addictive social media is, how addictive these phones, these devices, technology is. TikTok. I recommend that no one have TikTok. I don't have TikTok. If I want to know what's on TikTok, I'm going to tune into, I should say, either the libs of TikTok or Dan Bongino, who has a TikTok account. I'll hear what Dan says about TikTok. Myself, and I encourage any of you, drop that application from your phone. It is nothing but a device used, as we talked about last week. These are the artificial intelligence they're building upon. This is the programming of the human mind, which is indeed what I think that is the greatest threat to our country via the Chinese Communist Party. And then behind that, you have different terror groups. Putin's in there by all means. He might be number 2 or 3. He's in there. Iran, obviously, the number one sponsor of terrorism in our world. And we continue to codify into coddle, I should say, these different people groups as if that's going to benefit us going forward. It is not. I want to continue on with this article, though. And if you're just tuning in here at the DPB show, thank you very much. I so do appreciate it. Here, we've got a commenter, and this commenter obviously is going to take up all of the chat. He believes to be such an academic himself. You should really go over to somebody else's program because it because it's funny how you try to identify based on the topics that I'm talking about. I'm not getting into specifics. I don't have hours, but I'd love for at any given time. I always encourage people to go out and do your own research. He's citing Cambridge Analytica. Keep going. Keep going. I won't even give you the credit. But I do appreciate you joining us here at the DPB show on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble. And speaking of Rumble, I know yesterday Rumble had some difficulties. A group of some type of cartel group of people, probably domestic terrorists in some forms, tried to take down that platform through cybersecurity, right? They had to disrupt these people because they were able to disrupt the broadcasting of the Bongino show and many others that were launching videos. And it is because of people like our commenter in the section. They don't want to hear anything differing to their opinions. They don't like dissent. I might not agree with you, but you know what? I know the Constitution allows you to have your opinion, as long as that opinion isn't calling for the killing of people groups, like genocide against the Jews. You're entitled to say a whole lot of things. But when you start directing those comments and those outbursts of protest towards a group of people and calling for the destruction and the death and the removal, then that is beyond the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects so much when it comes to free speech. It doesn't protect you from going out and proclaiming that you're going to kill somebody. The First Amendment does not protect that. So as long as we're clear on that. And I hold on for a second. Let me see if I could take care of this here. There you go. I just put my commenter. Many of you might have been seeing that. That's what happens. You get a little overzealous on the DPB show, and you might find yourself in a timeout. Now, if you want to engage in reasonable, rational, common sense discussions about what's going on in society. And I find it so interesting that it's based on projection. Most of these folks, their arguments, they mirror yours, right? All they do is they say the quiet part out loud. They tell you that you're doing what they themselves have been doing and living a life. Of that particular commenter said that uh, being in your basement, like Republicans in their basement. Well, we know where the hot pockets and all those things are eaten. That's a saying that usually is about younger people in their parents' basement. But really, that's not what this report found that we covered earlier. Teens from conservative families more likely to be mentally healthy, and I do agree. I've met plenty of them. Appreciate Sarah Froberg chiming in. She said, "Hi, David," and she's asking which platform is this on. Where the trunk of this is on Rumble, but you can find at the DPB Show on YouTube, Facebook, and X/Twitter. So they're on all four formats. Will continue to be on all four of those formats as we continue in our process of going live during the week. This is new. Last week, I attempted to run some videos. I'm going to get back to that, but I have so much content, stuff that I believe we have to have conversations about. This one particular is, where James Carville came out and basically called the greatest threat to America right now is Christian nationalism. Are these the same people that are knocking on the doors of Roman Catholic priests? The radical traditional Catholics that um, under testimony, Christopher Wray had a hard time admitting that they weren't sending out the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the weaponized Federal Bureau of Investigation, to harass Christians, specifically Catholics, looking for people who have differing beliefs. And that's what this is all about. This article that I was reading about, the spiritual reason Democrats call Christians a bigger threat than Al Qaeda. This was on prime time. This was on the Bill Maher show. Uh, this was being broadcast. He said that the founders believed in a Christian moral philosophy. I'm sorry, apparently oblivious to the fact that the phrase hardly originated with Johnson. And he's talking about Mike Johnson, speaker. He said the founders believed in a Christian moral philosophy, but also put a provision in the Constitution to guarantee that the political leaders would never be able to establish an official national church, explained Ken Kowalski, a former Justice Department official under President Donald Trump, on Monday's Washington Watch with Tony Perkins. To make matters worse, the panel offered no illusions that they intended to target all believing Christians. Moments before the exchange, host Bill Maher described the Bible as a book that subscribes to conspiracy. Um, this article goes on. I'm going to share it out on the city's 92.9 Facebook page and also at the DPB show so you guys can see some of this research. Um, I believe it to be fascinating, especially when you weave the article of the teens from conservative families more likely to be mentally healthy. Then you have political opinionators, commentators like James Carville out there proclaiming uh, that Christians themselves are a greater threat than terrorist groups. Calling Christian groups terrorists, yeah, persecution. It's coming. And you know what I say? Blessed be the Lord. Bring it. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to stand in the gap. I no more cutesy time, as Dan Bongino refers to it. I'm bold enough, courageous enough. I know that the Lord is at my at my side at all times. He goes before me always and asks me to come and follow him and to be loving, caring, sharing, and warm, respecting others, but at the same time, not being a doormat. That's what I think that the people who don't necessarily agree with the Christian way of life, what they have a difficult time with is the people of the light, the people of hope, the people of joy, the people of peace, that you can manifest that without ugliness. I'm not here to argue with you. You know what? Your eternal salvation is not my responsibility. It is yours. Hey, I so appreciate you joining us once again here at the DPB Show. I want to get to one more article that I think is very important before we get off today. And I'm going to cover a little bit more about this on Thursday's show because I do believe that it's important that we push into this. When we want to know societally what's wrong with the country, it's the breakdown of the family. It's fatherless homes. Go to prisons. Go to our correctional centers. Talk to the residents, the inmates. Find out for yourself what is going on, what went wrong. And more cases than not, they will tell you 85% of the people incarcerated come from fatherless homes. That's a good start. The 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 unified family is very important. As we heard, conservative families, conservative families are more likely to have mentally healthy children. And I know that to be true. I've seen it. It's out there. Um, but like I said, before we get off today, I want to make sure that we hit upon this because this came out just recently, and it's fascinating. This is from my friend Carol Davis, and I hope to have Carol come on and explain a little bit more in detail. She was on the DPB show at the DPB show. She was on the DPB show about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months. And this was just released. Judicial Watch had filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Illinois Conservative Union and Illinois Family Institute in regards to the data, the voter rolls in the Illinois State Board of Elections. And there's been big movement. On Friday, Carol says, Judicial Watch issued an attached press release. Now that they have released this publicly, I am free to more openly discuss the next stage of this piece of our work to ensure the accuracy of Illinois voter rolls. She includes the Judicial Watch article. I'm going to go ahead and also put that up at the DPB show so you have that resource. It says that most of this information about Illinois is contained at the bottom of the article. Um, but Judicial Watch, myself, and Illinois Family Action. I said Illinois Family Institute. That's actually the overall umbrella to Illinois Family Action. The bigger part of that is Illinois Family Institute. Issued a state of Illinois Board of Elections a 90-day notice letter. The actual letter is linked in the release, which I'll put up on my social media page at the DPB Show on Facebook, and I'll put it up on Cities. The actual letter is linked in a release and comprehensively footnoted so you can see details for the counties. It was very good of David Smith of Illinois Family Action to agree to join me in this stage 2 effort. We informed the state that they have 90 days, and we are talking about Illinois, to clear the rolls of inactive voters who have remained on the rolls in the violation of the federal National Voters Registration Act. For short, of course, everything's abbreviated these days, NVRA, NEVRA, the Federal National Voter Registration Act. As was posted back in August, Judicial Watch estimates there may be as many as 800,000 inactives who should be removed. This is about 10% of the approximately 8.1 million registered voters in Illinois. Judicial Watch arrives at this number by examining the EAC, the Federal Election Assistance Commission, EVE's data. This data is submitted annually to the EAC by election authorities across the nation. Judicial Watch has had great success in many other states using this legal strategy. It's not a question of whether or not Illinois will comply. The question is, will we have to follow up our letter with a federal lawsuit? Well, of course you're going to. It's Illinois. JB and his offsprings, his acolytes, they don't care about the Constitution. Neither does Joe Biden. Just ask any one of the many people who have been given student loan debt relief. I don't make any, I'm open and transparent about it. I opened up an email about 3 months ago and found that the remainder of my student loan debt, had been totally wiped off the books to zero. Do I agree with that? Absolutely not. My debt is not for someone else to pay. Whether it's a fair system or not, that's a debate for another time. But we know that they don't follow the law, so there will be a federal lawsuit that is required. I sincerely hope, Carol goes on to say, they won't make us waste the time and the money. While I believe it's unrealistic to expect 800,000 voters will be removed, if we can get a few 100,000 removed, that could make a big difference in some of the 2024 races. She goes on to say that through the years of research, the data causes us to believe that some bad actors use the deposits of unlikely voters, which they have built up over the years in the voter roll bank, to make withdrawals when they need them. When inactive voters remain on the rolls, it is far too easy to reactivate those voters with requests for it's too easy, I should say, not far too easy. It is far too easy to reactivate those voters with requests for vote by mail ballots and then vote those ballots. This is a pattern which data teams across the nation have seen. I hope to get Carol in here to talk a little bit at greater length. I'm going to continue to talk about that particular lawsuit that was filed by Judicial Watch, Tom Fenton of Judicial Watch. I will follow up with Carol. Maybe I can get her on the line for Thursday, or at least get her to comment a little bit about that. But I so do appreciate you joining me here live on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 at the DPB Show, at the DPB Show. Go out, like, subscribe, and definitely follow me. I so appreciate you and everything that you have done to help me continue this journey of the road less traveled, right? It's not where I expected I was going to be, but it's where God has led me to believe. And we're going to talk more about that on Thursday. But once again, until then, I so do wish that you enjoy this evening. Peace be with you. I love you, and Jesus loves you more. Take care now.